Due to lead in, Checkpoint Productions proudly presents an audio interview with Master Sifu Heidi Sarmiento. Hello, Master Sifu Heidi Sarmiento. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and welcome to Checkpoint Productions. Um, I,
Thank you.
I'm so happy to be able to interview you because we've kind of met indirectly by way of Facebook, but Facebook does a great job of expounding upon different personalities, and that's one of my first questions. What made you even turn to the social network of Facebook?
Honestly, it wasn't my choice. It was one of those things where my daughter, at the time, was a teenager, and she was on social media, and people knew she was my daughter, so they were trying to get a hold of me through her.
I see.
So they would say, "Hey, can you tell your mom this or tell your mom that? She taught me this time." And she said, "Mom, I'm just going to create an account for you because I'm tired of your students trying to get a hold of you through me." So that's how that kind of happened.
Isn't
And then
that
people said,
interesting?
"Yes, it is." I wasn't initially a social media person at all.
Interesting.
Very new, very technologically challenged on my end, but I've learned.
I got you. Well, you know what? That is where our children come into play.
Yes.
And even me, concerning technology, it was by way of my children and grandchildren that I was even able to get this far. And so I
Yes.
totally am in concert with you. I have a
Yes.
question for you. First question is, can you tell the listeners a little bit about your background and where you were born?
Yes, I was born in Great Lakes, Illinois. That's about an hour from Chicago.
Hmm.
As my dad was stationed there, and he was in the Navy. He was a chief. He was a submariner, and he was then stationed in Honolulu, Hawaii. So we moved from essentially Great Lakes, Illinois, to Honolulu, Hawaii, and I went to elementary school there because he was stationed there, military service, and then he was stationed in San Diego, where that's where I currently reside. So my upbringing, having a military father who was a submariner, I should say.
It
They're
makes
a different
sense.
breed. They're a different breed. Very strict upbringing with a military father, and also in an Asian household. So anybody who's Asian understands that statement. Very strict, force you to, with education and lots of really high standards to live up to. My mom was a registered nurse, and
Hmm.
my dad was in the military. So um, very strict Asian military background. But I want to say that I had the best of both worlds because my dad was a very hard man and my
Uh-huh.
mom was very soft and she was very sweet. And there's always balance in life because I say,
Yes.
how did the meanest man in the world marry the sweetest woman in the world? And I say that with all love and
I
respect
know
for
you
my brother,
do.
who I totally miss. But he
Yes.
was a hard man, but he's why I am who I am today is because of that strict upbringing, that military upbringing, and that high standard that why I am who I am. So he made me that way. And while you hated it growing up, I realized my best qualities as far as discipline and
Hmm.
my work ethic, integrity, all come from my dad. But I'm glad that I have the soft mother that balanced it all out.
Wow.
And in life, I've seen that transferred over into all areas of life in
Yes.
finding balance.
That makes so much sense. And so basically, you're a military brat.
Yes, I'm a military brat.
Yes. Uh, I too am a military brat, and I totally understand exactly what you're
Yes,
talking
you get
about
it.
because my parents are from the deep south of Tennessee. And to make a
Mm,
long story short, my father was 20 plus years Air Force. And
mm,
that discipline that you're talking about, we grow up with it because of the simple fact
yes,
that they're always on the spot,
they are.
especially with their
Yes,
base commanders and so forth. So, a lot of people don't realize military kids grow up in the military.
yes, we do.
So,
We
yes, part
definitely
of that
do.
discipline that you're talking about, I can totally relate to that, and it makes a lot of sense. Now, how do you apply those, prior integrated aspects of your life, the discipline that you lived around consistently in the military, into your
Hmm.
martial arts? Does that
Oh, they
play a
go hand
role
in hand.
today as
Yes,
far as you know? How you exemplify what you do in terms of
yes.
teaching and learning.
Well, it's it's multifaceted with that, because the discipline in martial arts training, it transfers over into all areas of life.
Hmm.
I've seen, and that's what I basically require of the students that I train. I want to see their grades. That
Yes.
you cannot be a student of martial arts and you're saying yes ma'am, no ma'am to me, and you're cutting up at school, or you have poor grades.
Yes.
That says there's no discipline. There should be a consistency and not a duplicity with martial arts students, and with martial arts instructors. So
Yes.
I have myself up at a high standard, and I find that in growing up, how my dad did, he elevated the standard. So the standard was always high. So if
Yes.
you set the standard up high, children are going to rise to that standard, because I want to say they don't know any better.
Yes.
The standard's always been set. And if, say, my dad, he happened to, after he retired, was a college professor for San Diego Community College District, but on Navy contract.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, I became a professor.
Very
So
impressive.
it's like he demonstrated that. And so I want to see my students' grades, and I reward them for good grades, because that says, you know what? You're representing yourself, your family, your art, your God, wherever you go. So nobody should be surprised to learn that you're a student of the martial arts. It should make sense.
Yes, makes sense to people who basically understand that there are certain rules in life,
Yes.
and in this generation, we see it with the younger generations of today. I'm working on like my children, grandchildren, and now great grandchildren. So
Mm-hmm.
there are these different generational periods and time zones and gaps between these
Yes.
generations that lead up to us. But I always remind all the children that we are the last of the guard. We are the gatekeepers. I'm well
Yes.
into my 60s now. So, much of the wisdom and the knowledge, I try to transfer down to them as much as possible. But I also recognize that these different generations are extremely intelligent as well. And so
Yes.
a combination of the two can make the greatest of power.
Yes, when they have a good foundation too, because I understand I'm not my only children's or my grandchildren's only influence.
Hmm.
I'm there to guide, but they're inundated with so much, because now there's social media, there's their
Oh,
friends,
yes.
there's so many other aspects that didn't exist when you and I were growing up.
This is true.
So yeah, so it's a little bit harder, but we have to stay harder on them,
That's right.
because I want their foundation to be just that solid. Because when it's not, then people can come in and social media can come in and do more harm than good.
That's
We
correct.
want them
That's
to
true.
have it, but to use it for good and to use the benefits of it, but not get submerged with it.
Yes, I totally concur. Well, that brings me to my next question. So when did you first become interested in the pugilistic fighting arts? I mean, what